Joining us now, I'm delighted he's with us, Congressman Mike Rogers, Republican, Michigan, chairman of the Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence. Congressman Rogers, great to talk to you.
Laura, it's always good to talk to you. Thanks for having me.
This is a disturbing development for our security, for the security of our allies in the region. What do you think motivated the Obama administration to proceed this way, despite its claims that it would never allow Iran to get enrichment capability, when this deal clearly gives them the implicit right, at the very least, to keep the pursuit?
No, exactly. I mean, you know it's a problem when Secretary Kerry is saying in a press conference, hey, this does nothing to allow them to enrich, and at just about simultaneously, the foreign minister in Iran is at a press conference saying this is important because it allows us to continue enriching uranium. As we would say in the FBI, that's a clue that we've got a problem here. And so I can't tell you why I think now. I think they were in a big hurry to get a deal. They wanted a deal so bad they were willing to give up the one thing that was pressuring Iran and finally bringing them to a position where they thought they had to deal with this, which is sanctions. And when they gave that release valve, and we should, despite the administration's call that, oh, this is no big deal, it's just a little bit of money, it's not important, they gave them the ability to barter with gold and precious metals in a way that allows them lots of flexibility to get around sanctions. That was a huge giveaway for us on the sanctions front. And why they would do that without getting a more substantial deal, I mean, incredibly, the absolute entirety of their nuclear weapon plan is intact. And it's just a little bit stumps me that they would allow this to happen so early when Iran was not party to anything that would be meaningful in the disruption of their
John Kerry was reacting to the critics yesterday and said this.
Everybody has a right to be skeptical, because there are indications that there are people in Iran who have wanted to pursue a weapons program. It's not based on trust. It's based on verification.
So he says there is verification. Is there?
I don't know how you get there. There's nothing in there that would allow us to get to their military research facilities, nothing that would allow the inspectors to get to their ballistic missile testing facilities. Nothing reduces the number of centrifuges that they have today, which is more than plenty to make an enrichment at 90%, which is nuclear-grade material. I don't know how he says that in good conscience, candidly. And to know that, by the way, the last round, when they were going through rounds of discussions, they were ramping up their ability and their development to try to get to what's called the dash, meaning all the research is done on your ballistic missile, all your research is done on how to enrich at 90% plus, which is weapons-grade material, and then how to weaponize, meaning how do you take that material, put it in something that explodes, and put it on top of a missile. That's a very difficult part. All of that was going on all at the same time. And by the way, during the time that Rouhani, who's now leading this in this negotiation, was doing that negotiation. So for them to say, oh, there's plenty of verification, it belies what we know to be true, given the intelligence that we have about how Iran operates. That's what's confusing to me.
There are a lot of people who are listening to this show right now, Congressman, hear these stories, and they're focused on trying to have enough money, just maybe buy a few Christmas presents. Either their wages have been flatlining, they don't see much improvement in their lives, and they see this taking place, and they say to themselves, why would the Republicans work with the Democrats on pretty much anything, on this president, on any big issues, given how on Obamacare he lied, and he perpetrated this fraud when they knew all these people were going to get their plans canceled. Given how this whole thing in Iran turns out, we lose those sanctions that were so vital to the region and to our security of our allies in the region. Why would we rush to work with him on any other major initiatives like immigration reform? How do you respond to those concerns that these people are not operating in good faith over at the White House on this stuff?
Well, I mean, clearly, and then this talk of secret negotiations for 2 years. Why would you negotiate with a power of which we have agreed with our United Nations partners to provide serious sanctions for their continued enrichment? Why would you?
Because they're not trustworthy. I mean, I'm sorry, because they're not trustworthy.
I got to tell you.
You won't say that, but I'll say it.
Well, it certainly doesn't pass the smell test.
Well, my follow-on question is, Congressman, why would the Republicans rush to work? As your colleague Kevin McCarthy said, there will be an immigration reform deal. John Boehner said there will be an immigration reform deal. Look, these are nice guys. I know they're friends of yours. But given what we know that these people are capable of on Obamacare, on this, on how they blew the Syria thing, on the Solyndra, on all this green money that went down the toilet, how can you justify going to the table with the Democrats on immigration reform?
Well, I'm not sure that's going to happen, and I'm just going to disagree with Kevin McCarthy, even the Speaker. I don't see how you put a deal together that passes the House that the president wants to have, or he can support.
Well, Nancy Pelosi says she's for piecemeal, which means, of course, she's for piecemeal because they're not going to do any of that enforcement stuff that you put in there. I mean, they've just proven themselves to go around any requirements or rule of law or enforcement. They'll just do their own thing, and maybe it's a Friday night amnesty, maybe it's discretion the Homeland Security gets. So no matter what's in the bill, they're not going to do it.
I don't see how that passes. I just don't see how that passes. So even the folks that would hang with the Speaker on other very difficult issues, I don't know could get there on this particular. I don't think that immigration is alive in this session of Congress. I just don't see it. I don't think you can put enough people together.
How about next year? They're talking next year, Congressman. Some of the
I don't know. That's what I mean. I meant this Congress, this session of Congress, which would include next year. Okay. I just don't see it happening.
Piecemeal
I don't see
or
how they get
comprehensive? You're saying piecemeal or comprehensive, given the bad will on the lack of good faith?
The only thing I see that could possibly pass the House right now is just, what can we do to secure our southern border? And by the way, this is bigger than, worried about Mexican citizens crossing the border. This is about non-Mexican citizens of questionable origin all over the world using our southern border to infiltrate for nefarious purposes.
OTMs.
We better get a handle on our southern border. So I could see that piece passing.
But do you think that?
I can't see much more.
But Congressman, I mean, you just got through going through how these people have screwed up this Iran thing. You've been so great on Obamacare. But we could put into a bill, or you could put into a bill, that there's going to be 40,000 Border Patrol people, strict deportation, anyone coming here is going to immediately leave, and none of that. I mean, we have to realize at this point none of that matters. I mean, they are just not going to enforce that stuff.
Well, the good news is he is not going to be president forever. He's only there 3.5 years. So good policy on securing the borders, I think, is a time-tested event. Now, it might mean if he has
But then it triggers amnesty, Congressman. But then it triggers amnesty. Once they do it, then they say, okay, we did that, which they're not going to do. Then you guys got to give the pathway to citizenship. That's the problem that we have. Again, they don't really verify in any meaningful way what's happening with Iran. You're great on that. But on this, the lack of good faith and the clear adherence to the rule of law and common sense, it's not going to be present there if it's not present with the damn Iranians.
Yeah, well, that just means any deal that we would go forward with has to reflect that trust but verify language, and I think that's the only way. I just don't see it passing, Laura, unless we get that kind of language.
I don't mean to beat up on that.
There is a crisis of credibility with this president, even with Democrats. Remember, even on the Iran deal, Democrats a huge bipartisan number of individuals, and I know I was in meetings with all of the senior leadership of both Republicans and Democrats on the National Security Committees. It was unanimous. Hey, don't do this deal. This doesn't sound right. We've got a lot more work to do. They did it anyway. So they've screwed up their friends and in the National Security Committee, Republicans and Democrats in the House and the Senate. They're opposed to the deal. Our Arab League partners are opposed to the deal. Israel is opposed to the deal.
No, he's united the world against us.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and if the people who live around, there are neighbors of Iran who said, hey, this is a scary deal, you think you ought to listen to them. They've seen and lived next to them for generations.
Did you see?
You ought to take that into account.
Congressman, I know, I've been focusing on China on this show for 12 years, and many people say, well, you're so anti-China, you're always kicking up the dust about China, you're obsessed with China. Well, now we find out over the weekend, of course, China has moved in a deeply aggressive way over Japanese islands that China asserts dominion over. It's ridiculous, but clearly they see weakness there, and they scrambled their fighter jets, and Hagel's response was, we're deeply concerned.
Yeah, I have said about 6 months ago that I would be surprised within the year if we didn't have some Japanese-Chinese confrontation in a limited military way over the islands in the South China Sea. They are very aggressive. They put out a white paper a few years ago that said their main goal militarily is to compete with the United States Navy worldwide. And clearly they want to project that power in the South China Sea.
But what are we going to do about it? I mean, really? I mean, what are we going to do about it? What can we possibly do about it? I mean, Well,
there's some great opportunities. The problem is I'm not confident that this president will do any of them. One is this is the wrong time to try to shrink your Navy. You know, the one thing our Constitution says about our military is that, you know, we should provide for the general defense. That's an important rule. But you shall create a Navy. Not may, but you shall. And the reason that is that's the way we project commerce and economic prowess around the world and take care of our national security interests. Well, 40% of the trade comes through the South China Sea in the entire world. And the Chinese want us out of the South China Sea.
Well, of course they do. But that's why you can't have 2% growth, right? I mean, this idea that where it's like 1999 and we're just, whoo, you know, we got the 5% growth or whatever it was back then. Budget surplus. I mean, that's over. That's over.
But here's the good news. The good news is we have, you know, the Vietnamese are now reaching out to us. We have the Indonesians, others in the region are saying, hey, we need a little help here. The Chinese are getting rough and tumble. And this is a huge opportunity for the United States to realign some strategic alliances in that Pacific Rim to take care of our national security interests for years to come without us having a
Congressman, they did the big pivot to China. Remember the pivot?
Well, I wouldn't say big.
But remember, it was a pivot. I think they put some Marines
in Australia and called it a day.
Yeah, that was
that's really not a pivot.
I mean, but this foreign policy, you can't even make this up. I mean, they all trashed Bush. Bush is this is that. Bush terrible. You know, got us in these wars, and people are against the wars. I understand all that, but my goodness, now pretty much everyone just is. We become a laughingstock in way too many areas, and that's why people think there's got to be some plan to weaken America, because at every turn, America seems to be getting weaker on a geopolitical basis. And it seems like to accomplish that, you really have to try to do that, you know. And I'm not necessarily there, but there are a lot of people who think that way.
Well, I mean, you can't continue to take out, go after our military, and its readiness is down. That's a commander-in-chief responsibility. This Congress as well, and we're fighting, but the readiness is down. They're going to try to take the Navy status down to about 200 ships. Just to give you an idea, under Ronald Reagan it was 600 ships. That's the way you protect commerce and trade and project power around the world. At the same time, by the way, the Russians are investing in their Navy, the Chinese are investing
but maybe
in their Navy.
Also part of the thing is, I mean, everybody has to get some cuts, right? I mean, and maybe we protect our trade.
Listen, but here's the thing, Laura, this is really important. As chairman, I took about $3 billion out of our intelligence budget, and I did it in a way I thought was responsible. Merged training, merged IT, protected the mission, kept people on target overseas to collect information. We did that with the military. They went above and beyond that. That's the problem. You know, they went from, you know, getting rid of fat to cutting muscle and bone, and they really believe that they want a diminished U.S. military presence around the world. And I'm not talking about permanent stationing or other things. You get a port of call from a U.S. carrier group, that's an impressive thing. And it says, hey, we're here and don't mess with us. You start taking that away. You start doing the kinds of things you're doing in the Middle East where the Saudi Arabians are now, or the Saudis, are now abandoning, publicly stating, hey, the U.S. is no longer a reliable partner. We're going to go find one somewhere else. These are huge problems for us. And it's hard to see, like you said, when I'm sitting at the table figuring out, hey, can I even buy a gift for my kids this year, let alone am I worried about what in the heck's happening in Saudi Arabia. But it will impact our economy and our prosperity in the future and our national security.
That's right. Well, I think that's all true. I also think we better think twice before we give Obama fast-track trade authority. Because our trade policy is also a critical weapon in how we deal with other countries. And to give him fast-track trade, given what he did behind closed doors on this Iran thing, I think none of it makes sense. Congressman, it's always great to talk to you. Have a wonderful Thanksgiving with your family and all the great people in Michigan. We really appreciate you taking some time.
Thanks, Laura. Same to you. Enjoy your family.
All right. We'll take a break. Don't go away.
The Laura